Welcome back, everyone. The last two remaining files that we need to migrate out of cart context towards cart Redux is the checkout component and the checkout item component. To start with the checkout component, we know that we need the cart items and the cart total. So first, let's once again bring in the appropriate hooks that we need from React Redux. We need the use selector hook, like so. And then what we need is both the select cart items and select cart total. And these will come from our store folder, our cart folder, our cart selector. And then it's just a matter of replacing our cart items that we were getting from context before to use the selector, select cart items, and then the cart total, so that we're using the selector, select cart total. Now what we need to do is do the same thing for our checkout item. So our checkout item has both add item to cart, remove item from cart, and clear item from cart. And as we know with these three methods that we have, which are our action creators, they need the cart items as well. So this component is actually going to be the one that calls probably the most. So we'll need our use selector. We'll also need use dispatch. And then we're going to bring in our select cart items from our cart selector. And we also need both our add item to cart from our cart action. We need our clear item from cart. And we also need remove item from cart. It seems that I've called it remove item to cart. So let's actually fix this and name this something that is more grammatically correct. Instead of remove item to cart, I'm going to say remove item from cart. And then here, I'm going to reflect the same as well. And now what we can do is we can start replacing what we had before. So these three methods are now action creators, which will need to be dispatched. So of course, this means that remove item to cart is remove item from cart, like so. We no longer need context because we've imported them in from the correct action creator file. And then I just need to wrap these in the dispatch, which we will get from our use dispatch. So just a lot of boilerplate at this point. Everything is something that we're already pretty comfortable doing. The other thing we need is we need to get the cart items from our use selector, select cart items. And what we can do is make sure that when we call clear items from cart, we pass it the cart items as the first argument. And then we're going to do the same for these two remaining methods. We're going to wrap this in a dispatch, and we're going to pass cart items as the first parameter, and do the same for the remaining one. And now if we save this, let's check to make sure our code works. So going back here, we hit our go to checkout. We see that now we're inside. We can remove items, our total updates respectively. We can get rid of an item, and we can clear the item. So there we go. Everything works. And that is our full migration. So the last thing we need to do is just remove the corresponding context for cart because we don't need this anymore. In fact, we can even delete our context folder because there's nothing inside. And there we go. We've migrated everything over from our cart into Redux. So there's a lot of little things that we had to tweak, but what we really understood is that there is a different way of thinking about how to structure your code when you're using Redux versus context. The primary one is that inside of your cart actions, you want to figure out what you need because you no longer have that scoped context that you had before. You have to pass everything inside of these function creators, and they should be as pure as possible. Similarly, a lot of the logic that we are dependent on is being extrapolated into selectors. And using reselect, we can memoize them so that they are just as efficient as if we were to store them using either useReducer or useState inside of a context component. So now that we have this done, another great benefit that we get from Redux is actually the ability to persist inside of local storage. And it's technically doable as well inside of context, but you have to write your own code to do so. Whereas inside of Redux, there is a very, very popular library called Redux Persist. What it essentially allows us to do, Redux Persist, is persist any of our local state into local storage on the web browser, meaning that every browser has access to this little slice of memory. We can actually commit any state changes that the user has to that local storage so that when they come back to their session, they can actually rehydrate this store with their previous state, which means the application, if done correctly, the state of the application is reflected by Redux. So that means that technically we can actually persist their cart throughout their journey. Let's say they leave and they come back or they refresh. If we refresh right now, what we notice is that our cart goes back to 0. But we can actually persist this using Redux Persist. So that's what we're going to do in the next video.